Qin Emu's killing of 2 envoys from the barbarian D Empire quickly caused an uproar throughout the capital. Grand Chancellor Jiyu Linyuan was initially unconcerned upon hearing that Qin Mu had committed murder again. But when he learned the victims were official envoys, he immediately realized the gravity of the situation. As the heavenly devil cult master, Qin Mu was too dangerous to confront directly. So Jiyu Linyuan decided to report the matter to the crown prince instead. Chancellor Ba Shan was equally troubled. He had only intended for Qin Mu to test Pangong So. Yet Qin Mu had instead slain 2 of the barbarian D Empire's envoys within Imperial College, creating a diplomatic crisis. The envoys had been sent by Khan Ruandi, ruler of the barbarian D Empire, with Pangong So leading the delegation. Khan Ruandi was an ambitious and capable ruler who had united numerous prairie tribes into a powerful empire capable of rivaling Eternal Peace Empire. He had adopted many aspects of Eternal Peace's administration, culture, and education to strengthen his nation while waiting for the opportunity to conquer the weakened Eternal Peace Empire after its recent disasters. The envoy mission was intended both to observe Eternal Peace's true condition and to learn from its civilization. Qin Emu's execution of 2 envoys therefore threatened to provoke open war between the 2 empires at a time when Eternal Peace was still recovering. Ba Shan regretted involving Qin Mu in testing Pangong So, realizing that his junior brother from the Great Ruins was fearless and unconcerned with political consequences. If war broke out, Qin Mu could simply return to the Great Ruins while the empire would bear the consequences. Ba Shan wondered how Crown Prince Ling Yushu, now supervising the empire, would resolve this unprecedented crisis. Meanwhile, Pangong So remained astonishingly calm despite Qin Emu's deliberate provocations. He politely suggested hosting a banquet at Jade Fragrance Tower to apologize for the misunderstanding. Qin Mu accepted the invitation and bluntly declared that Pangong So's retainers had attacked him first. Making an apology appropriate, Pangong So suppressed his anger and quietly left. Qin Mu watched Pangong So's retreating figure with intense killing intent but found no opening to strike. Pangong So sensed the murderous pressure yet continued walking steadily, only altering his footsteps slightly into an irregular, hobbling pattern. Qin Mu recognized that this subtle movement eliminated every flaw that could be exploited. Even experts like Daozi or Fozi would have frozen under such pressure. Yet Pangong So calmly adjusted his movement to defend against every possible attack. Qin Mu concluded that Pangong So was among the strongest opponents of his generation, even surpassing Daozi Lin Zan. He believed that if Pangong So was not the ancient monster who had reincarnated 18 times, then he must possess an overlord body like Qin Mu himself. Ba Shan questioned Qin Mu about killing the envoys. Qin Mu honestly replied that Ba Shan had never forbidden him from killing anyone and pointed out that they had previously slaughtered numerous shamans from Roland's Golden Palace, making 2 envoys seem insignificant by comparison. Ba Shan angrily explained that the situations were completely different. During their previous battle he had acted under his identity as Marshal Khan, which did not officially represent Eternal Peace Empire. The barbarian D envoys, however, officially represented their empire, and killing them was equivalent to insulting barbarian D itself. Qin Mu admitted he had not considered this and casually remarked that he could not revive the dead. Ba Shan warned Qin Mu that Crown Prince Ling Yushu would soon summon him. More importantly, if Pangong So truly was the reincarnated ancient monster, learning Qin Emu's true name would allow him to cast a deadly curse upon him. Ba Shan therefore decided to stay in Qin Emu's room that night to guard against any such attack. As expected, Crown Prince Ling Yushu personally visited Imperial College instead of summoning Qin Mu. Rather than reprimanding him, he admitted that he had spent the entire afternoon trying to devise an explanation for the incident but had failed. He asked Qin Mu to help him formulate a response. Qin Mu suggested writing directly to Khan Ruandi, accusing the 2 barbarian D envoys of behaving like uncivilized barbarians who had attempted to murder a high-ranking palace official inside Imperial College. Since that official was also the heavenly devil cult master, Qin Mu had naturally killed them in anger. Qin Mu even proposed demanding that Khan Ruandi send gifts to apologize, warning of severe consequences otherwise. Ling Yushu was speechless but eventually decided to send exactly such a letter. He jokingly warned Qin Mu that if Khan Ruandi launched an invasion because of it, Qin Mu would have to charge into battle at the front lines. Qin Mu immediately became much less confident. The Crown Prince then explained that Qin Mu could no longer remain at Imperial College. With nearly 500 foreign envoys studying there, Qin Mu might create another international incident at any time. Although Qin Mu argued that he only killed with good reason, Ling Yushu remained unconvinced. Since the emperor and imperial preceptor had already recovered, Ling Yushu would soon leave the capital to oversee disaster relief. He therefore appointed Qin Mu to accompany him along with officials from the Ministry of Works and scholars from Imperial College. Partly to keep him away from further trouble in the capital, Qin Mu agreed, finding little reason to remain confined within Imperial College. While walking together, Ling Yushu suddenly asked whether his sister, Princess Ling Yushu, had spent the previous night at Qin Mu's residence. Qin Mu immediately denied any improper relationship, insisting that nothing inappropriate had happened and asking the Crown Prince not to believe rumors that would damage both their reputations. Satisfied by Qin Mu's sincere expression, Ling Yushu believed him, promised to resolve the envoy incident himself, and instructed Qin Mu to prepare for their departure from the capital. After Ling Yushu left, Chancellor Ba Shan approached Qin Mu and curiously repeated the rumors about the princess staying overnight. Qin Mu firmly denied everything and complained that Ba Shan's habit of spreading gossip was exactly why Butcher always avoided him. Ba Shan insisted he was merely curious before returning to the more serious matter of Pangong So. He reiterated that if Pangong So truly was the reincarnated ancient monster, Qin Mu would face great danger that night, so they should stay together to watch over each other. That night, however, Ba Shan quickly fell into an incredibly deep sleep, snoring so loudly that Qin Mu's bed trembled, preventing Qin Mu from sleeping at all. Hours passed peacefully until well after midnight, when an icy wind suddenly swept into the room and blew both window lattices wide open. Qin Mu was awakened by strange chanting outside the window while Chancellor Ba Shan continued sleeping despite the cold wind. Sensing danger, Qin Mu immediately used the heavenly devil creation technique to seal his souls and spirits, activated his vital qi, and summoned the junior protector sword. When a white figure appeared outside, the sword automatically attacked, severing several heads. Qin Mu understood that the enemy was using shaman spells, which either targeted the physical body or the soul. He recalled methods such as soul poison, straw doll soul worship, and the victory loathing technique, which harmed the soul to injure the body through the connection between the two. Sealing his souls and spirits and keeping the junior protector sword nearby were his preparations against such techniques. Soon, eerie laughter echoed through the room as hundreds of tiny human-like soldiers carrying weapons and riding miniature horses entered through the window. They gathered on Chancellor Ba Shan's body without waking him. Their leader pointed at Qin Mu, and the entire miniature army charged toward him. Although they appeared insignificant, Qin Mu realized they were part of a dangerous shaman technique. Before he could eliminate them with his sword, he heard someone calling his name from far away. Although he did not answer, the call still located him because hearing one's own name caused an involuntary reaction of the soul. A chilling force froze both his soul and body. Extinguishing his sword light, the tiny soldiers then climbed into his mouth, nose, and ears, entered his body, bound his soul, and carried it out. Qin Mu found himself trapped upon a sacrificial altar surrounded by darkness. The tiny soldiers placed his soul upon the altar while enormous puppet-like faces surrounded him. The altar was lifted into the air by a gigantic hand, revealing countless blazing eyes floating in the darkness. Qin Mu recognized the technique as the victory loathing spell. Although his souls and spirits had been sealed inside his body, the spell had still managed to imprison them. He realized that as long as his souls and spirits remained within his body, the enemy's magical power inside him could never surpass his own, leaving him a chance to resist. Qin Mu immediately called for his sword. The sword pellet Mute had given him during New Year flew through the darkness and answered his command. Although it had become smaller after previously guiding out the remnant divine art from Imperial Preceptor's body, it still released brilliant sword light. Qin Mu used it to cut down the tiny soldiers repeatedly, but they continuously reassembled themselves after being destroyed. The giant wooden puppets also attacked with tremendous force, forcing Qin Mu to struggle against them. Even those tiny soldiers crushed by the puppets soon recovered and resumed attacking. Meanwhile, the countless fiery eyes unleashed beams of flame from every direction. Qin Mu fought desperately as his soul neared collapse. Yet every enemy revived endlessly without exhaustion. Just as Qin Mu was about to lose hope, dawn approached. Roosters crowed and the watchman announced the fifth night watch. At that moment, Chancellor Ba Shan yawned and remarked that he had waited the entire night for Pangong So to appear personally but had only attracted a 7 stars realm grade shaman. He revealed that Pangong So had been cautious enough to let another great shaman perform the assassination because he suspected Ba Shan was protecting Qin Mu. Ba Shan then unsheathed his tyrant knife while chanting a poem. A dazzling blade split the darkness apart, cleaving the sacrificial altar and shattering the entire illusionary world. Qin Mu gradually opened his eyes, but discovered his vision was distorted because the victory-loathing spell had turned his eyeballs partially sideways. Ba Shan instructed him to slowly move the muscles of his eyes until they returned to their proper position. After recovering, Qin Mu admitted that he had fallen into the trap. Ba Shan showed him the true form of the spell. The sacrificial altar had actually been nothing more than a silver plate. The 4 gigantic puppet guardians were only palm-sized wooden dolls. The tiny soldiers were soybeans, while their horses were bean sprouts. The countless blazing eyes had merely been the eyes of large spiders arranged in rows. And beneath the plate lay a weasel. Both the spiders and the weasel had already been killed by Ba Shan's knife. Ba Shan explained that he had expected Pangong So to attack personally but instead encountered only a 7 stars realm grade shaman. The enemy had cast the victory-loathing spell while dreaming. Ba Shan's knife not only severed the spell but also followed its connection into the shaman's dream and killed him in his sleep. Qin Mu questioned whether knife skills could truly reach such a miraculous level. Ba Shan replied that his master, Heaven Knife, possessed legendary blade techniques capable of even cutting open the void, though he himself had not yet reached that level. The next morning, the Imperial College was filled with rumors that another envoy from the Barbarian D Empire had suddenly died during the 5th night watch. Blood had flowed from every orifice as he screamed 3 times before dying miserably. Qin Mu silently doubted Ba Shan's claim that the shaman had passed away peacefully. That afternoon, a shaman arrived with an invitation, informing Qin Mu that the prince wished to host a banquet in his honor. Qin Mu was surprised that Pangong So had ordered a great shaman to assassinate him with a spell the previous night yet now openly invited him to a banquet. He wondered whether Pangong So intended to pressure the heavenly devil cult through Roland's golden palace or had another scheme. Chancellor Ba Shan offered to accompany him, but Qin Mu declined, reasoning that if Pangong So had truly intended to kill him openly, he would not have resorted to secret shamanic spells. Qin Mu therefore decided to attend the banquet alone. The meeting was held in green bamboo garden within jade fragrance floor, the largest restaurant in the capital. Although the restaurant had once been filled with nobles and officials, business had declined after the natural disaster because the emperor and officials were occupied with disaster relief. Pangong So personally welcomed Qin Mu, expressed regret over the actions of his retainers, and proposed that both sides let the matter end with their deaths. Qin Mu accepted his courtesy while observing the carefully designed garden, which featured bamboo groves, streams, waterfalls, a bodhisattva statue holding a jade vase, and a pond decorated with small islands. Inside the private room, Pangong So dismissed the 2 great shamans guarding the entrance, ordered food and wine to be served, and invited musicians to perform. He immediately addressed the attempted assassination, stating that ordering Qin Mu's death had not been his own idea. Instead, one of his retainers had acted out of anger after witnessing Qin Mu kill numerous disciples of Roland's golden palace. Qin Mu accepted the explanation, noting that he had survived and the retainer had already died. Pangong So then admitted that although he had known the assassination attempt would happen, he had deliberately allowed it. His purpose was not to kill Qin Mu directly but to occupy his attention. He knew Qin Mu would ask Chancellor Ba Shan to guard him through the night, preventing Qin Mu from spending time studying and improving his newly achieved 6 Directions realm. Pangong So, by contrast, had enjoyed an entire day to stabilize his cultivation and deepen his understanding of the realm. He explained that for experts, a single day could determine victory or defeat, and claimed that Qin Mu's chance of victory had fallen to 0. Qin Mu was impressed by Pangong So's foresight and maturity despite his youthful appearance. When Qin Mu asked his age, Pangong So replied that his body was 13 years old, though his soul had lived for over 11,000 years. He openly admitted being a reincarnated cultivator who had experienced 19 lifetimes. Pangong So recounted his previous incarnations. In his sixth life, believing he had reached the limits of his own cultivation, he entered Dao sect to study the precelestial supreme mystery technique in Dao sword. The Dao master had valued him highly and appointed him Daozi, expecting him to become the next Dao master. Pangong So mastered the first 13 forms of Dao sword but never fully comprehended the 14th sword before dying of old age. During his 7th life he entered Dao sect again, yet still only managed to cultivate half of the 14th sword. In his 8th life, Pangong So entered Great Thunderclap Monastery, not merely to learn Rulai's Mahayana Sutra but to comprehend the essence of Buddhism itself. Beginning as an ordinary monk, he studied every Buddhist scripture before mastering all 20 heavens of Rulai's Mahayana Sutra. The Rulai of that era praised his understanding as surpassing even his own. Yet Pangong So still found Buddhism insufficient to break through the ultimate realm. Afterward he reincarnated as a woman and cultivated at Passion Parting Palace. In later lives he studied at Little Jade Capital for several lifetimes until he had mastered all of its supreme arts, acknowledging it as a sacred ground superior to the other 3 great sacred grounds. Pangong So eventually entered the Heavenly Saint cult to study the great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures. Although he considered them slightly inferior to Dao sword and Rulai's Mahayana Sutra, he coveted the secret unity technique that was passed only from one cult master to the next. Hoping to inherit it, he remained within the cult. But the cult master and his disciple, known as the Saint who appeared once every 500 years, defeated him and prevented him from becoming cult master. After his failure, Pangong So betrayed the Heavenly Saint cult. He united Dao sect experts and righteous cultivators to attack the cult. During the invasion, the Saint fought Dao master to the death and severely wounded Pangong So even after Pangong So launched a sneak attack. The Saint was ultimately exhausted to death by the combined forces of the righteous path. Before dying, the Saint passed the position of cult master and the unity technique to Heavenly King Cheng. Pangong So continued the assault, but Heavenly King Cheng secretly passed the unity technique to the Saintess before leading the cult to resist. Unable to achieve complete victory because of his own severe injuries, Pangong So withdrew to the prairie. He later learned that Heavenly King Cheng died at Jade Ripple Pool, after which the Saintess became cult master, slaughtered countless Dao sect and righteous cultivators, and eventually died after passing on her position. When Pangong So asked how the Heavenly Saint cult referred to those 3 successive cult masters, Qin Mu answered, "The 3 kings." Pangong So acknowledged that the title suited them. Pangong So concluded that his extensive experience across 19 lifetimes, together with his understanding of the Heavenly Saint cult and numerous sacred grounds, had originally given him 80% confidence in defeating Qin Mu. After using the extra day to strengthen his 6 directions realm while Qin Mu had been distracted, he now believed his victory was absolutely certain and claimed Qin Mu no longer possessed even a 10% chance of winning. Qin Mu calmly stood up, stretched, and declared that he now felt like killing someone. Pangong So rose as well, instructed the 2 great shamans to leave the dishes where they were and keep them warm until he returned. And the 2 men walked out together to begin their duel. Qin Mu and Pangong So left Jade Fragrance Floor together and slowly walked toward the outskirts of the capital. Although it was already noon, early spring remained cold. The capital was still bustling with nobles and wealthy families, many of whom had stayed in the north because the natural disaster had made the south just as cold. As they walked, both men adjusted their essence, qi, and spirit. Pangong So, who had reincarnated 19 times and lived 20 lifetimes, quickly restored himself to his peak state, while Qin Mu was still recovering. Pangong So released his murderous intent to pressure Qin Mu, forcing him to constantly adjust his posture and aura to avoid exposing flaws. It was the same tactic Qin Mu had once used against him at the Imperial College. But now Pangong So had turned it against him. By forcing Qin Mu to follow his rhythm, Pangong So sought to seize the initiative. As Qin Mu continuously altered his movements to conceal weaknesses, the number of required adjustments would eventually exceed his understanding, allowing Pangong So to kill him with only 1 or 2 moves once they reached the empty outskirts. Qin Mu realized he was facing the most terrifying opponent he had ever encountered. Pangong So never wasted even the slightest advantage. And after 10,000 years of cultivation and countless reincarnations, every movement and word naturally embodied his accumulated experience. His actions perfectly reflected the principle of unifying knowledge and action. Qin Mu reflected on his own understanding of that principle. Failing to act according to one's knowledge was insincerity. Failing after acting was incompetence. While acting based on knowledge and carrying it through to the end represented true sincerity. Only by thoroughly understanding the principles behind every skill could one truly unite knowledge and action. Pangong So had reached this level through endless reincarnations, mastering countless techniques until they became instinctive. Qin Mu realized that from the moment they met outside the Hall of Six Directions and throughout their conversation in Jade Fragrance Floor, Pangong So had already woven an invisible web around him. Now, as they left the city, Pangong So was tightening that web, steadily reducing Qin Mu's room to maneuver before delivering the fatal strike outside the city. Forced by the pressure, Qin Mu's steps became increasingly awkward while Pangong So walked more steadily. Pangong So deliberately forced Qin Mu to reveal every possible variation in his movements. Intending to kill him once he exhausted all his options, Qin Mu suddenly stopped walking, intentionally exposing countless flaws throughout his body. Pangong So instinctively wanted to attack, seeing countless fatal openings, but hesitated because Qin Mu was the Heavenly Devil cult master, and killing him inside the capital would bring the overwhelming revenge of the Heavenly Devil cult. Qin Mu seized that brief hesitation. All his apparent flaws disappeared instantly. His aura erupted, and he advanced with overwhelming murderous intent, forcing Pangong So onto the defensive. Pangong So was surprised that Qin Mu had exploited his momentary hesitation to reverse the entire situation. Although Qin Mu lacked his experience, he possessed a sharp determination that Pangong So himself had gradually lost over countless reincarnations. Now Pangong So had to follow Qin Mu's rhythm instead. Their body techniques and auras continuously evolved with astonishing precision. Pangong So's swaying movements became more exaggerated, making him resemble a drunken youth being led through the streets by Qin Mu. Their battle had already begun despite no physical exchange, becoming a contest of wisdom and psychological control. Even after reversing the situation, Qin Mu remained cautious. Pangong So had 20 lifetimes of experience breaking through the Six Directions realm and had already perfected its power in only a single day. Whereas Qin Mu had only recently entered the realm and was still learning to control it. Although Qin Mu possessed the circulation diagrams for the Six Directions realm and Seven Stars realm, he had not yet integrated the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique with the great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures into a unified cultivation method. He understood that in the Six Directions realm, his spirit embryo, 5 elements divine treasure, and 6 directions divine treasure all needed to be merged into one complete system. However, because he lacked the proper circulation diagram for the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique in this realm, it remained his greatest weakness. Pangong So had given him no opportunity to cultivate or complete this fusion. Eventually they left the capital. Although Pangong So's outward movements appeared increasingly unstable, every transformation of his body techniques remained flawless. Qin Mu secretly admired him. Along the journey from the city center to the outskirts, Pangong So had displayed dozens of perfected movement techniques, each cultivated to its utmost limit. Whether moving like a dragon, tiger, phoenix, or swimming fish, every style perfectly embodied the creature it imitated. Qin Mu found it almost impossible to imagine how one person could master so many body techniques to absolute perfection. As their murderous intent intensified, Qin Mu gradually discarded the burdens he carried. His sword pellet and junior protector sword emerged from his peyote sack. His 2 pig slaughtering knives dropped into the ground far apart. His bamboo cane, iron hammer, brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were all left behind. The heavy iron plates attached to his chest, his weighted boots, and the iron weights bound to his legs also fell away. Freed from these burdens, Qin Mu's body became lighter. His bones crackled, and his aura rose once more. Despite the increased pressure, Pangong So maintained flawless control without revealing any weakness. Around them, people were enjoying spring outings on the grasslands. Children flew kites, and young men demonstrated their movement techniques. However, everyone's attention gradually shifted toward Qin Mu and Pangong So. Birds fled from the forest to avoid their overwhelming killing intent. while countless fish suddenly leapt from the mud river in panic. At that exact moment, a nearby child burst into loud cries. And Qin Mu and Pangong So simultaneously unleashed their attacks. Qin Mu activated Rulai's Mahayana Sutra, causing countless Buddhist runes to revolve around him like a giant bell, while the five heavens manifested with Buddhist chants. At the same time, he executed the nine-dragon monarch technique, drawing dragon qi from the 9 dragon veins beneath the capital. The dragon qi flooded into the river, materializing as dragons that surged toward him and greatly amplified his aura. Having learned this supreme imperial technique from Emperor Yangfeng, Qin Mu chose to attack first, intending to overwhelm Pangong So with absolute magical power rather than compete in techniques. His immense cultivation far exceeded others of the same realm, and he planned to render Pangong So's experience from 19 lifetimes meaningless through sheer strength. Qin Mu's attack exploded across the river. Water rose into the sky and formed a gigantic Buddha over 30 yards tall, wrapped by water dragons. Combining the 9-dragon monarch technique with Tempest of the 9 dragons from Thunderclap 8 strikes, the giant Buddha struck with 5 mountain-like fingers while 9 dragons roared forward. The streams exceeded the speed of sound and smashed through everything in their path, displaying the majesty of Buddhism and the imperial family's divine arts. As Qin Mu's attack descended, Pangong So countered with his thumb-sized sword pellet. He immediately unleashed the second writing of the 14 writings of Dao Sword, binding of 5 qi and 3 eons. Rising on the spot, cloud chariots crossing, executed through the Precelestial Supreme Mystery Technique. The sword lights embodied the 5 elements and the 3 eons, constructing Dao Sect's ideal world containing a sword sun, sword moon, sword earth, and circulating 5 qi. Dao Sect's sword arts were founded on algebra, believing that all phenomena of heaven and earth could be explained through mathematical principles. Their sword techniques transformed these calculations into constantly evolving worlds. Unlike Buddhism, which cultivated the mind instead of mathematics, the two divine arts collided violently. The river shook, water soared into the sky, the earth trembled, and the shockwaves pierced willow trees and riddled shoreline rocks with sword holes. Qin Mu's overwhelming power entered Pangong So's mathematical sword world, where the intricate calculations steadily dismantled the force of his attack. The 9 water dragons and giant Buddha rapidly collapsed beneath Dao Sword's second move. The countless sword lights then struck the giant Buddhist bell protecting Qin Mu until it shattered. Qin Mu remained expressionless and summoned his own sword pellet. Without using sword treading mountains and rivers, he directly unleashed the second move of Sword Picture. Sword of Founding Emperor Sea of Blood. Crimson sword lights flooded across one side of Mud River like a blood-red ocean, and the image of an emperor god appeared among them, pointing his sword with supreme contempt. Sword Picture clashed against Dao Sword, instantly destroying Pangong So's 5 qi and 3 eons. Pangong So groaned as the overwhelming sword lights filled with murderous intent bombarded him. He rapidly employed extraordinary movement techniques, transforming like fish, birds, and phoenixes through the air, yet still failed to evade every sword light. Blood blossomed across his body before he landed on the river, sending water exploding in all directions. Qin Mu immediately pursued. His sword pellet transformed into a massive blade that split the river. Pangong So blocked with his own sword pellet but was knocked backward, skipping repeatedly across the river surface before finally stopping. Qin Mu sprinted over the water, every footstep exploding into towering sprays. Before Pangong So regained his footing, Qin Mu had already crossed several hundred yards. The giant blade flowed back around Qin Mu's fist like liquid before he threw a punch. 45 green glowing water dragons erupted from the blow, merged with the river, and roared toward Pangong So amidst endless explosions. Leaping into the air, Qin Mu stretched out both hands and drew down heavenly lightning. The lightning converged precisely into the center of the 45 dragons. As he descended, his sword pellet transformed into countless sword lights as he finally used sword-treading mountains and rivers. Vast mountains and rivers descended from the sky, crashing into the river, splitting its surface over a radius of more than a dozen yards, and dividing the rising water into mountain-like formations. Blood sprayed beneath the water as Pangong So fled toward the riverbed. Qin Mu then unsheathed the Junior Protector Sword, which spun in drill sword form, drilling through the water and pursuing Pangong So's trail of blood beneath the river. Qin Mu gently landed upon the river surface while the waves created during his sprint finally crashed down behind him like scattered jade. Standing calmly upon the water, he manipulated the surrounding currents until transparent flood dragons appeared to circle him. The junior protector sword eventually returned, slowing to a stop before being swallowed by its fish dragon-shaped sheath. Qin Mu's sword pellet floated quietly before him while surrounding streams of water rose into the sky, transformed into clouds, and gathered above him. Thunder rumbled within the clouds, flashes of lightning revealing the faint forms of dragons. Qin Mu calmly called out to Pangong So, saying that he had disappointed him. He questioned whether the cultivation accumulated over 19 lifetimes amounted only to this and challenged him to emerge because Qin Mu intended to kill him quickly and return before his meal became cold. The river remained completely silent. Believing Pangong So had escaped, Qin Mu turned back toward the shore. The surrounding spectators stared at him in astonishment as he ignored them and retrieved the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone he had discarded earlier. He then noticed the iron hammer, seized it, and smashed it into the ground. The tremendous impact compressed the air into a wall before shattering it, causing the earth to sink and crack. Tremors beneath the ground revealed someone fleeing underground. Qin Mu immediately chased after the underground target. He reached the bamboo cane, struck it into the earth with one palm, and blood burst from the hole it created. Continuing forward, he arrived at the two pig slaughtering knives, grabbed them while flipping upside down, and spun continuously as countless knife lights rained into the earth. Advancing while spinning, he relentlessly carved through the underground path until finally slamming the backs of both knives against the ground, landing steadily before sheathing them and calmly returning to the capital. He returned to Jade Fragrance Floor, entered Green Bamboo Garden, passed around the statue of the Bodhisattva of Compassion, and re-entered the private room. The two great shamans were stunned to see him return so quickly. Qin Mu asked whether the dishes were still warm. One shaman remained speechless while the other confirmed they were. Qin Mu then asked about the wine and was told it had become slightly cold. He instructed one great shaman to warm the wine and serve it, while ordering the other to remain and pour wine for him. After defeating Pangong So in their brief exchange, Qin Mu calmly waited in Jade Fragrance Floor. When the great shamans of Roland's Golden Palace returned with warmed wine, Qin Mu suspected poison and ordered the shaman who had heated it to drink first. The shaman reluctantly obeyed, but after taking 2 mouthfuls, his body shriveled into skin as countless poisonous insects burst out from within him before burning into ashes, exposing the deadly shamanic poison hidden in the wine. Qin Mu, confident in his mastery of poisons after learning from Jade Face Poison Cane, ignored the danger and continued drinking the poisoned wine while enjoying the banquet with food, music, and dancing. The poison contained soul-devouring insects capable of consuming both body and soul. Yet Qin Mu remained unharmed after nearly finishing the entire jar because the spirit-returning pill-grade supplement technique continuously refined everything he consumed. When the banquet ended, Qin Mu criticized Pangong So for living over 11,000 years while constantly copying the paths of others instead of creating his own, eventually losing his original spirit. He mocked Pangong So for lacking the courage to appear after losing the advantage, declared that dreams were meaningless without the will to fight, reminded the host to pay the bill, and calmly departed. Meanwhile, Pangong So emerged from the shadows of Green Bamboo Garden, badly wounded and covered in blood. He realized Qin Mu had used the previous human emperor's sword techniques, fused with Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's sword skills, Rulai's Mahayana Sutra, and the Ling family's 9 Dragons Monarch technique, creating a combination of supreme techniques that completely disrupted his Dao sword and strategic calculations. Because he recognized the inheritance of the previous human emperor, Pangong So no longer dared confront Qin Mu directly, uncertain how much of the human emperor's swordsmanship the youth had inherited. Remembering the previous generation, Pangong So recalled that the human emperor had been the most brilliant expert among countless near-god figures, surpassing all others in fame and strength. Throughout Pangong So's many lifetimes, successive human emperors had repeatedly appeared, each possessing different but astonishing inheritances, many originating from saints born every 500 years. Having been killed several times by human emperors in the past, Pangong So had long abandoned any thought of coveting their inheritance. Seeing the previous human emperor's swordsmanship in Qin Mu reminded him of the strongest swordsman of that generation, whose unforgettable sword light had been engraved in his memory. Because of this fear, Pangong So had panicked during the battle, allowing Qin Mu to wound him severely before forcing him to flee into the river and underground. Although his supreme escape arts from Little Jade Capital enabled him to survive, Qin Mu's green heaven's eyes tracked him, and the bamboo cane, iron hammer, and pig slaughtering knives inflicted further serious injuries. Pangong So knew Qin Mu could not truly kill him because his soul was nearly at the level of a god and the cultivation accumulated over previous lifetimes still remained within him, though his current body could not fully withstand that power. Qin Mu also understood this and therefore chose not to pursue him, instead returning to Jade Fragrance Floor to pressure Pangong So psychologically and prevent him from safely recovering. Pangong So then considered informing an ancient organization that the human emperor's lineage still survived through Qin Mu, believing such news would cause tremendous upheaval. When the great shaman who had served Qin Mu asked about his injuries and mentioned Qin Mu had not paid the bill, Pangong So coldly stated that although he had lost many times, he did not want others to know of this defeat. He immediately destroyed the shaman by melting away his flesh and soul, leaving only a pile of clothes behind. After paying the bill himself, Pangong So decided to leave the capital because Qin Mu would likely inform Chancellor Ba Shan of his identity, making it impossible for him to remain there openly. However, he believed that if he truly hid himself, even Chancellor Ba Shan would not find him. He disappeared into the shadows and vanished. Qin Mu returned to the Imperial College and informed Chancellor Ba Shan that Pangong So was indeed the ancient monster of Roland's Golden Palace and that he had seriously injured him. Ba Shan was alarmed, warning that if Pangong So recovered and secretly targeted Qin Mu, the consequences would be disastrous. Heaven Knife had failed to kill Pangong So, forcing him into hiding, and although Pangong So's current cultivation remained at 6 Directions Realm, he would quickly return to 7 stars, Life and Death, and eventually Divine Bridge Realm within about 10 years, making Qin Mu helpless against him. Qin Mu jokingly suggested Ba Shan stay by his side permanently, but Ba Shan replied that Pangong So also knew his identity and would eventually seek revenge against him as well, concluding that only killing Pangong So could eliminate the danger permanently. Ba Shan immediately departed on his green bull to search for him. Returning to Scholar's residence, Qin Mu became uneasy, realizing that if Pangong So remained alive, he could secretly watch him every night. Qin Mu resolved to mobilize the Heavenly Saint cult's disciples to search for Pangong So everywhere unless he returned to hide in Roland's Golden Palace. At that moment, a steward informed Qin Mu that, having become a divine arts practitioner, he must move from Scholar's residence to divine arts residence. Chen Wanyan and Si Yunxiang also prepared to move after advancing into 6 Directions Realm. They sincerely thanked Qin Mu, admitting that without his 6 Directions computational cannon, they would not have broken through so quickly. Qin Mu modestly dismissed the achievement as insignificant, leaving Chen Wanyan and Si Yunxiang speechless because the guidance had completely transformed their cultivation. Chen Wanyan bid farewell to Scholar's residence, abandoning any interest in becoming the senior scholar, while Yu Qinghong and Monk Yun Ke likewise declined the position, preferring to leave it to younger disciples. Qin Mu, Chen Wanyan, Si Yunxiang, and the Dragon Qilin then headed toward Divine Arts residence. Along the way, Qin Mu mentioned that the Crown Prince would soon leave the capital to carry out disaster relief and invited them to accompany him for experience, even suggesting that Chen Wanyan could eventually become an incense master of the Heavenly Saint cult after gaining more practical experience. Remembering the many dangerous adventures he had already experienced alongside Qin Mu, Chen Wanyan immediately refused, claiming he needed to consolidate his new cultivation instead. Si Yunxiang, however, eagerly volunteered to join. Before Qin Mu could continue, a steward from Divine Arts residence arrived and announced that the Crown Prince had already officially selected Chen Wanyan to accompany the expedition together with more than a dozen other scholars from Divine Arts residence.